Welcome everyone today to our professional etiquette and resume strategies for Deloitte presentation. And if you have questions at any time, please feel free, raise your hand. And so the reason that we decided to do this workshop was based on, we had our first Deloitte Challenge after having a couple years break from the Deloitte Challenge last year. And we had a couple of situations that arose, and we want to be sure that you are fully prepared to be engaged in the Deloitte Challenge and really represent yourself well for Maxwell, as well as presenting yourself in a professional manner. So we had situations last year where students texted the employer, which was not a professional way of presenting Maxwell. And definitely we would like for you to understand that any kind of back and forth with the employer is to be done in a professional way. And we want you to put your best foot forward. So I think that is where we're coming from. And with that, we'll start with the first slide. So the first thing is, for the Deloitte Challenge, you are going to be professionally dressed. So we expect, they show up in suits, and so we expect that you should show up in a suit, tie, skirt, nice blouse, pressed, black socks for the men, no bare feet kind of thing. No flip-flops, those kinds of things. So, a white collared shirt, a conservative tie. This is what you're going to put yourself out there as if you were taking part in the Deloitte, their case, and presenting to a client possibly. So that's how we want you to look at this. No super high heels for women. A jacket is a must, a blouse or collared shirt that looks nice underneath a suit, no wild colors, and nothing risque, certainly. No tight skirts kind of things, but pantyhose and things like that. As for accessories, definitely for women, no dangly bracelets or things like that. Keep your hair well groomed, maybe pull back, and things like no gums, no piercings. If you have any nose piercings or things like that, you want to take those out. No flashing of tattoos or things like that. Certainly men be clean shaven or not too much on the aftershave and or cologne for women. And make sure, if you wear nail polish, it's not chipped or... When you say clean shaven, does that imply that a beard is not... I think if you have a beard, I think it's fine to just keep it shaped,
Clean it up.
Right. But...
what you have now is fine.
Yeah.
Just, you don't want the patchy, I just haven't bothered to shave in a couple weeks kind of look.
Right. So, and I know some of this may seem very, common sense to many of you, but we have had students that have shown up and, have these things, and so we needed to address it. So, for the main event, do you want me to go with this? And
sure.
Okay. As for the main event, remember to present yourself and make eye contact. A firm grip handshake and eye contact in the same. Don't cross your arms. It shows, you're closed maybe to a situation. You want to have open arms and embrace any kind of conversation. Don't fidget and don't slouch. As for, we will be having a reception, and that will be the culmination of the whole Deloitte Challenge, and this is where They will do a Q&A between everybody and present whichever team is the winning team for the Deloitte Challenge. So during this time, they are planning on having possibly wine and beer during this time. So we expect that, you know, you can have casually one, but not to go crazy. Certainly it's not there for that reason. They were a little late on getting their liquor license in, so that may not even be an issue. So, but other things like holding your plate and casually speaking to people, eating and talking can be a little bit awkward sometimes as well. So be sure to, you know, be on your mark for those situations. So with further ado, I think this is, Jennifer's going to take it from here.
Sure, and you guys will have to forgive me. I took the front Maxwell stairs like an hour ago and I'm still winded. So during your interaction with them, you want to come into this prepared. So you want to do some research. If you don't already know enough about Deloitte, just make sure you look into some of the major projects that they're working on. Know the people who are going to be there. We're going to get that information to you in advance. Is that correct?
I'm sure Melissa will be getting that information to you. We have 2 alums that will be doing the judging, and they are talking about partners coming in during Friday to actually sit in on some of the presentations. There will be a morning presentation and an afternoon presentation. Some teams will be chosen to move forward, and some will not be asked to move forward, but you will be expected to be engaged in the Deloitte Challenge. So if your team is not presenting, we expect that you will sit in on the other presentations and take note of what your team members are doing.
So yeah, just make sure you kind of know who's attending, know a little bit about them. So that way when you talk to them, you kind of know something. You know, when you're talking to them, make sure you're actually focusing on them and not kind of distracted and looking around. You know, during this, put the phones away. Make sure that you're fully engaged, that you're actually hearing what they're saying. Take notes if you can while they're talking. If they mention something interesting, jot it down. Make sure you write down, you know, who said it. I know this seems obvious, but don't swear, even if it's something as simple as hell. It's just not appropriate in a professional setting. And you know, make sure you ask permission whenever it's appropriate. May I sit here? Oh, do you mind if I join the conversation? Things like that. Again, we can't drive home enough how important professionalism is. They notice these things. They've mentioned to us in the past when students have not been so professional. So they are taking these things in, and that's the type of company that Deloitte really is. They're very highly professional. So it's important that if you want to fit in with that culture, you behave that way. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the physical documents that you want to have on hand or that you might collect, or things that are part of this process with Deloitte. So the first one, I'm going to talk just a little bit about the consulting resume. You all have a resume, I'm sure. If you want to work on it prior, Lauren, would you go to the next slide? Thanks. If you want to work on it beforehand to kind of make it more of a consulting type resume, I'm just going to give you some tips for that. A lot of you probably don't have consulting experience, but it's really all in how you spin things. So just to give you an idea of some of the skills you might want to focus on in your resume, your analytical thinking skills, things like your problem-solving abilities. You want to talk about, you know, one of the big things that they focus on is teamwork. You work a lot on teams, and I'm sure at some point all of you have done that. Whether through, you know, some organizations that you've been involved with, volunteer work, think about things you're doing with your graduate assistantship, any positions you've held, interpersonal skills, what is your communication style, client relations, customer service. That's a really critical piece of consulting as well, that you know how to work with people, especially folks outside the organization because they get their money from their clients. So it's really important that you know how to work with customers and clients. So anywhere on your resume that you can kind of focus on those things, those are some really good kind of keywords. Other things to consider, because Deloitte has such a focus on public service, Make sure you put any volunteer work that you've done, anywhere you can sort of highlight your commitment to public service. Desire to make a positive impact, again, going back to what I just said, and appreciation for diversity. Just some tips for the resume, and again, this really goes back to those skills, but think about how you can kind of articulate how you've done some of those things. I like to say whenever you can quantify, put percentages, numbers, anytime you can highlight a success. Again, relate all these back to those things that Deloitte is looking for. Anytime that you can really provide a great example of working with a customer or client, how was that successful? What was the outcome of that? So these are just some things to be thinking about is how do you sell yourself to a consulting firm? How do you show them that you have these things that they're looking for, even though you may not have the sort of direct consulting experience? Just some sample terms. I'm not going to read all of those to you. This PowerPoint will be available, but we just wanted to give you an idea of some of the key things that they're looking for on a resume. And then just some sample phrases on the resume, some things that we've seen. I know Rebecca did a lot of research on consulting resumes and kind of found that these were some really great sort of phrases that were on those resumes. So just some things to be thinking about when reworking your resume. Now, you won't necessarily have to have your resume next week. The Deloitte resume drop isn't for a few more weeks, but you may want to bring a few copies of your resume just in case. And so, it may need a little work, and this is just to kind of help you get started on putting something together that's really directed at consulting. Bless you. Business cards. I want to start by saying a lot of students ask, should I bring business cards? If you don't have some, it's probably a little late in the game to get them now for next week. However, if you have the time or the desire, absolutely. You can get them printed. I know at the print shop here on campus, you can even kind of make your own. Last year we had students come in the office and they'd gone and bought the appropriate kind of cardstock and just created something using Microsoft Word and putting the Maxwell logo and your name and phone number and email address. But it's not something you have to stress about. It's not an expectation, but if you want to bring business cards, it does look good. But really what we wanted to talk about was kind of what you do with the business cards. They're probably going to hand you their business cards. So you want to make sure, number one, that when they hand them to you, you're kind of paying attention to who it is. I know sometimes it's easy, you get in these networking things and you just start collecting cards, but if you can make a note, any conversation topics, make sure you get them from everybody and you kind of try to associate face with name, because I'm going to talk about follow-up next and it's really important for that. Like I said, just kind of make sure you know who's giving you the card and what you guys talked about. And then for follow-up, we recommend thank you notes. Not a thank you email, not a thank you text, but an actual thank you note that you put in the mail and send to them. It should happen pretty quickly after the challenge. And the reason we say, kind of make sure you pay attention to who you're collecting cards from and make a note of what you talked about is because it's nice to include those personal things in the note. Employers really like that. So, it was really great to talk to you about the project that you guys are working on. Really look forward to potentially working with you in the future, things like that. Thanks for taking the time to, talk to me about the, case interview. Anything that you guys kind of talked about, you can make a note. And it really just helps kind of remind them of who you were, and it keeps you in their mind. So I really highly recommend this. Go out and buy some thank you cards. Be prepared to write them.
Will you have the addresses of?
We can get you those. That shouldn't be a problem. So that's kind of our spiel. We wanted to keep it short and simple. And like Lauren said, I know a lot of this seems like, duh, we know this. But there have been issues in the past. And so we just wanted to make sure that we were doing our due diligence and preparing you for what the expectations are for the Deloitte Challenge. That it's, you're being your most professional, you're committing to this, that it's not just, I'm going to go on Thursday evening, get my assignment, work with my team, go present, but that you're going to be there the entire day on Friday. You're going to be at the breakfast. You're going to be thoughtful in how you network, that you spend the whole day, you go to other presentations, you show your face. They're going to remember. And that at the reception that evening, again, you're being very professional and doing all the right things. So, you know, we're open to any questions, but we just wanted to kind of put all this out there that these are the expectations. This is really important. And if you don't put your best foot forward, they're going to remember. And even if you decide you don't want to work for Deloitte or you don't want to go into consulting, you never know when you're going to run into these people again, okay? So it's really good to not burn bridges, because maybe you decide this isn't for you and you decide to go in another direction. You just never know. That employer may know the people at Deloitte. People talk. The professional world is a small one. So just keep that in mind. Are there any questions? Because we did go through this pretty quickly. Yeah?
I was curious about the business cards. So if we were to make them, we're allowed to use the Maxwell logo?
There is a logo that...
It's right on the main Maxwell website, and you can download it. It's in like every format that, there are 4 different.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it is for use by
And if
folks
you
in
go
the
to
Maxwell community.
Staples, they're actually, you can buy a box and it looks like sheets of paper, and you can actually just create and print them right out on a color printer. They come out really nice. And
I don't know if this is an option before the Deloitte Challenge. We go to the Copy Center Shine, and then they have templates for the Maxwell logo on it, and then you can customize it how you like it, and then they'll print it all for you within 2 weeks or so, a week or 2.
yes.
Are there recommendations online for formats for like grad student business card where do you include your prior employer?
On a business card?
Yeah, I mean, because I'm a grad student, so
And that's okay.
That's okay.
And typically the only thing you really have to put on there is like your name, your email address, like your contact information. It's really meant to be more for contact information purposes than to be like, you know, here's who I work for. That's not as important.
Okay. And then I also I missed a little bit what you said about certain teams might be not going all the way through the process. At what stage does that happen?
So in the morning, all of you will present. You'll probably hand in, we're going to have a breakfast, and that will be Friday morning. It will start at 7:30. You will turn in your presentation, I believe, at that time to Melissa. And then what you will do is you'll be directed, you'll be either presenting up in 204B Maxwell, or you'll be down in 060 Eggers, the Global Collaboratory. At that point, your team will go through their presentation of that case. And then upon finishing that, I believe she'll be back in touch with each of the teams at around lunchtime. Around lunchtime, they will convene and add a twist to the case. And at that time, I believe they choose 2 teams to go further and take the twist and present again, adding the twist. And then after that, I believe then we'll have the reception in here. So, but she wants you to be available at whatever time the judges decide to move forward into the next stage, and she'll be back and forth with email with you. So I don't know, has she been in touch with you, any of you yet? Because I did send her the full list of everybody who has RSVP'd. So Melissa makes up the teams, and it worked out really well last year because there are people in different programs. And so everybody kind of got sprinkled into different groups. So you don't choose your own group. And that seemed to really work out well, and people, there was a fair distribution of talent, I think. So, yes.
Yeah.
So I know when they were here 2 weeks ago, they said that time commitment at the night, they said don't work totally until 3 or 4 in the morning. What have you heard from feedback from the students who did it last year?
Sure. So last year, most of the students, they were given the case. They were given the case at 3 in the afternoon. We're meeting at 5:30 because there is a class conflict. So that goes until 5. And I don't think that you're going to have any problem. Of course, you'll, right after their presentation of what the case is, you'll be off to go to work. I would probably say if you all work until 11 and do due diligence to the case and feel confident in what your presentation is. certainly they don't want you to show up the next morning dragging. They want you to be, you know, fresh and ready to go. So.
Usually sets a deadline because we email to provide before midnight.
Right.
And actually, I've done this for 10 years when they were first doing it. And students would stay up all night and then they wouldn't show up for the presentation because they were tired or, you know, and that's what it's not meant to be a torture exercise. It's meant to take that time period that you know you have to work with and just do the best you can with that. And if they're not looking for, you know, the ultimate answer, but they're looking for how you work together, how you problem solve, how you use that time that you did have. So don't worry about it being, you know, this fireworks come out of the screen when you do it. Just pay attention to the process, pay attention to the content, the information,
Right.
make it as professional as you can. But it's meant to be, you know, a learning exercise. It's not meant to be a terrible experience.
Yeah, it was very interesting. Did anybody watch any of the presentations from last year? It's really interesting. We did send it in an email, the link to go and watch. Nobody did come up with the same explanation or overall solution to what Deloitte did come up with, but they came up with really interesting and very excellent reasoning in terms of how they went through the case. So it was certainly a very interesting situation.
And we recommend watching the video beforehand. And if you didn't make it to the Deloitte presentation a couple weeks ago, watch that as well. They're all on our website, and everything is in our resource library on in the Maxwell Career Management System as well. So do your homework.
Yeah, and we'll be putting this presentation up in the resource library in the Maxwell Career Management System. So, but before you go, I'm going to hand this out. This is just, we're going to ask you to sign this contract that you're taking part in this. We do understand that, you know, those things of life does happen. You know, if you had a family emergency that you suddenly had to attend, but because of the correspondence we had last year between the employer and students that were asking you to do this, that we would expect a professional letter to be written to certain people. So I'll pass these around, and if you can sign it and put it on the table in the back, it'd be really helpful for us.
It's really just a good faith contract. I mean,
yes,
nothing terrible is going to happen if you break it. But, you know, we just want to make sure that you understand, again, how important this is, because last year we had folks back out at the last minute. We had a student come into the office and tell us that they couldn't be there with the employer sitting there, and then left, sent an email lying to the employer, so the employer knew that this, you know, so there have been issues like this. You don't want to find yourself in that situation. Yeah, we had a lot of people drop out last minute. You know, we want to make sure that at this point you are fully committed. And if something does come up, I mean, life happens, but if you know that, oh my gosh, it's going to be really hard to make it next Friday, maybe it's best for you immediately to say, I can't participate in this, instead of waiting until the last minute, because that is very unprofessional.
And I think the reality check on that is that they lost time to billable hours. They sent staff off projects to handle 60 students, and 30 showed up. And so they had a lot of extra staff who really needed to be on billable contract hours. So it's not just like, oh, they're annoyed because they have to sit around. They were losing business because they made the sacrifice to be here. So it's just kind of the, you know, as I told many of you, you know, we're maneuvering from, you know, our academic world to our professional world, to pretty much everything that's happening here now, all your interactions with employers and everything that's happening is at a professional level. There's professional level consequences for things too for the employer. So that is really just to keep in mind that, you know, there are obligations in the professional world, and we're just trying to make sure that those are held up on both ends.
I will also just say, last year, but last year they actually also said that they took the downloads of people that didn't show up.
You want to hand it in on Monday?
And they did make note, they made note too of the,
Tomorrow I won't be here.
and they made note too of the people who didn't show up for all of it. You know, the people who came and did their presentation and kind of left and didn't bother with the rest. So they noticed these things. Yeah.
This might be a silly question, but the reception's for everyone, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so no matter if we aren't in the next round, we come.
Yeah, and it's kind of expected that even if you don't make it to the next round, that you go to the reception, because even if you don't win, the reception is about networking, and you're still going to potentially be a candidate for a position at Deloitte, so it's important to be at that.
Right, I just wasn't sure if you were invited.
Yeah, you're not
yes.
invited. If you're not a winner, don't.
Oh, yeah. Everyone, it's really a reception for everybody who took part in the Deloitte Challenge. And I think at that point, you can also discuss with the different teams why they took the route that they did on their project and what led them to go that way. So it's very interesting, and you get a lot of feedback from people at Deloitte who actually worked on the case, and they can say, oh, well, the reason we didn't go that route is, and so, you know, you kind of get their logic. So it's very interesting that way.
Did you have a question? I'm sorry. You had your hand
I was
raised.
just curious, how many people did Deloitte hire from Maxwell last year?
How many did we end up having?
4.
4.
We had 4 offers. We had 3 go, yes.
None of them won the challenge, right?
Um,
The people that won the challenge were not.
I don't think so, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try to win the challenge.
Did they all attend?
Actually, I do think one of them that was offered
Really?
was on the winning team.
Okay.
I do believe. So, yeah, she did. I believe she made an impact at the challenge. So.
Yeah.
Is that a fairly typical placement rate? Yes.
Yes.
Usually 2 to 3, 4 was high.
Yes.
They're looking to get, they have a number of schools they're screwed at, they're looking to get about 2 to, they have the number for the program they want.
Yeah.
We're looking for 2 to 3, we actually, went high last year, we were really happy with 4. So hopefully we're gonna go 4 and up this year, I hope.
We had a lot of students last year continuing to network with other Deloitte people that were here. And even, you know, just beyond in the state and local, we had one student who just kept networking through some people at Deloitte, and, you know, they just expanded their network that way. So it was through other Maxwell alum that person knew, and so they just continued the conversation. So they opened the rapport, and really it was great.
I guess that's a good question. Were these folks hired by the state and local practice or by the federal practice or a mix?
Both.
There's both, yes. So John Rampula, who was just here he will be back. He will be here for the challenge, and then he will be also back for the interviewing.
Right.
So he's one that will be a mainstay there. But you'll see now, besides Melissa and John, there will be other alums that will come. So.
Zach, did you have a question?
Yeah, just how late does that reception run on Friday? Because I have a volunteer at like 6:15, and I don't know when I tell them if I'm not going to be.
It starts at 5.
It starts probably between 4 and 5. So.
So you should be good. You should be
Yeah.
able to be there for the majority of it, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
And I think they reveal the true solution to the case is reception.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the other thing I think that they did that was really important, when it goes to your question of should you show up to the reception treatment, they actually talk about pieces that every group did.
Yeah.
I think that were interesting or different or something that really did happen on the project or how the client wanted to do that, and there's a reason that they didn't. And so, yeah, there's feedback for the whole process. So, yeah, certainly you're invited, but absolutely there's a lot of stuff that happens at the reception. It's not just
Right.
and feedback. They actually last year, and I guess I'll bring this up, they asked for the feedback from all of you because they like to try to make sure that they're doing it right and everything, and just to be respectful of your feedback. We had a little issue with that last year too. But you know, it's okay. But they asked for the feedback and you're giving it to them. But that's the other point of being there, is you can also help them a little bit and provide some feedback to them.
And we didn't get feedback last year that it was an overwhelming experience in any way, or that they were exhausted from it, or anything like that. You know, so everybody who came away from it was like, I was really glad I took part in that, and I learned a lot. So that's why I think it's a valuable experience.
So we really appreciate you guys being here today. Like I said, we know a lot of this. You guys know this stuff, and 99% of students do a great job, but we just wanted to make sure that we put it all out there, and we kind of gave you something to chew on, you know, that you go into this kind of knowing what to expect, because I think in the past students maybe haven't had that. They didn't know kind of what happens at the reception, or they didn't know that, you know, they really should plan to attend all the different presentations, and even if they don't win, that they should be at the reception. So we just really wanted to kind of give you guys a heads up and talk about those expectations, just so you know what you're getting into. Any other questions? Okay, excellent. Well, then we'll see all of you. I think all of you are going to challenge. Is there anybody here who wasn't planning to go to the challenge? Okay, so we'll see all of you next Thursday. If in the meantime you want to stop by the office to have us look at like a resume or a template for your business cards, we're happy to do so.